If I told you that the man who was once praised as one of the most trusted pawnbrokers in the United States, the man who has appeared on screen for over a decade, is now involved in one of the most shocking mysteries in modern American history, what would you think? What if I told you that the iconic pawn shop, adored by millions of fans and hailed as a cultural landmark, is concealing a shocking secret nobody saw coming? From dubious transactions to heinous crimes, join us as we unravel the dark tale behind Pawnstars' fame. Drop a comment with a 1 if you feel for Rick Harrison or a 0 if you see it differently. Make sure to like and subscribe to stay in the loop for our next expose, where we'll spill all the hidden truths of this saga. It started as a typical morning outside the gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, with a crowd of fans clutching their phones, eagerly waiting for a peek at Rick Harrison, the show's witty star and beloved figure. Bathed in bright lights, the shop's array of ancient coins, war relics, and enigmatic treasures has fueled endless captivating tales on Pawnstars. Yet this time, the hidden drama unfolding behind the scenes promises to outshine anything ever aired on television. But this morning felt off. The usual buzz was gone. No glowing lights, no excited fans. The gold and silver pawn shop was sealed tight, its iconic storefront crossed with yellow police tape. Federal agents and local officers stood watch in eerie silence. The cameras, once trained on Civil War rifles and Elvis vinyls, now captured a grim scene. At the heart of it all was a case rocking the nation, with Rick Harrison, a face cherished by millions, thrust into the spotlight. The revelation sent shock waves through the public as Rick Harrison found himself entangled in a sprawling criminal investigation so intricate that federal authorities were forced to intervene. The drama escalated when Rick's inner circle was thrust into the spotlight. Inside the Nevada courtroom, where tension hung heavy, it wasn't the charges or the verdict that gripped the nation. It was a confession. In a moment of stunned silence, a familiar voice broke through. It was Corey Harrison, Rick's son and steadfast co-star, whose words would echo far beyond the courtroom walls. Trembling in the courtroom, Corey spoke words that would alter everything. "I was involved. I did what my dad told me to do." In just 13 words, a secret world unraveled. For over a decade, Corey wasn't just behind the pawn shop counter handling antique toy guitars and rare coins. His confession revealed he allegedly played a darker role, one nobody could have foreseen. According to his testimony, beyond the cameras and chuckles lay a hidden truth. Corey was supposedly the gatekeeper, choosing which customers entered and signaling to shadowy third parties. His words shattered the carefree, jovial image of Pawnstars forever. Corey didn't just point to Rick Harrison. He unveiled a sophisticated network involving coded messages, clandestine deals, and illicit activities thriving beneath the studio lights. The betrayal cuts deep, leaving hearts reeling. How could a cherished father-son duo spiral into such a sinister tale? How long had this shadow lingered? And how many unsuspecting souls were ensnared in its web? This video guides you through the investigation's origins to the courtroom's stunning revelations. We uncover a leather-bound notebook allegedly stashed beneath a desk filled with details tying to the suspect's roots. You'll see what agents found. Passports, stacks of cash, surveillance photos, all pieces of a chilling puzzle. Most haunting, though, are the stories of the victims. Ordinary people who entered the pawn shop chasing a fair deal, never to return. We bring you into the courtroom where Rick sat in silence as Corey rose to speak. You'll hear the judge's measured, resolute voice condemning the egregious actions. Spectators witnessed a TV empire crumble. Networks yanked reruns and fans grappled with shock and outrage. Yet, questions linger. Is Corey a pawn in the scheme or a willing adult lured by the allure of power and wealth? No easy answers exist, only layers of truth waiting to be uncovered. This video doesn't just recount the tale. It follows the breadcrumbs, revives forgotten details, and unveils secrets hidden beneath the glitz. Ultimately, we're left to ponder. What if everything you believed was a fabrication? What if every televised deal masked a covert pact? Without one child's bravery to speak out, would it all have remained buried forever? This is the tale they tried to keep hidden, but now it's unstoppable. As the courtroom lights dim and tension thickens, Corey Harrison's voice cuts through like a chilling bell, stirring the silence. It's not just his confessions, but their delivery. Empty, weary, as if burdened by a secret too heavy for far too long. For years, there were no tears or cries, only a haunting silence shattered by an inescapable truth. That moment transformed a routine trial into something unforgettable, the total unraveling of everything people held true. For so long, Corey had been the endearing, clumsy figure on TV. The son, nicknamed Big Hose, Rick's reliable sidekick, striving to modernize the shop, often stumbling in deals and playfully bailed out by his dad. But now it was meaningless. The TV facade crumbled, exposing a man admitting his part in unthinkable crimes, his voice eerily calm. That day, the courtroom meant to uphold justice turned into a theater of betrayal. It wasn't just a betrayal of the law, but of family ties. What stunned onlookers wasn't only Corey's confession, but the extent of his awareness and active role in a shadowy network. He revealed how his father schooled him in spotting the vulnerable, lonely wanderers, homeless teens, those who entered the pawn shop, clinging to the slim hope of trading trinkets for cash. "We called them drifters," Corey said with unsettling calm. "They'd come in to pawn something. That's when I knew. That's when it all began." Corey explained using a seemingly innocent phrase meaningless to outsiders as a covert signal. Moments later, a black SUV would roll up outside the shop and the customer would be ushered to the back for further negotiations or to meet a special buyer, but they never reappeared on camera and many vanished entirely. This bombshell shattered the faith of millions of fans. A reality show woven into the fabric of American pop culture was exposed as a portal to a chilling hidden nightmare. The betrayal wasn't just legal or moral. It struck deep emotionally. Those cozy nights watching the show now feel tainted, leaving a bitter aftertaste. Corey spoke of his torment, sleepless nights, and haunting faces that linger. "There's a girl I still see in my dreams," he confessed. "She had a red backpack and an old camera. Said she was filming her trip across America. I never saw her again. I don't know what became of her, but I know it wasn't anything good." The courtroom hushed. Lawyers, reporters, even officers felt the chill in Corey's voice. Once a trusted sidekick, he now stood before the crowd as a shattered figure, not pleading for mercy, but issuing a stark warning. His final words froze the air. "I'm not the only one." Investigators had long sensed the shop concealed secrets behind its glitzy facade. Security footage from 2016 revealed eerie clues, abrupt cuts showing people entering the shop, never to be seen again. Mysterious cars sped into the backyard at odd hours, but it was Corey's confession that finally pieced the puzzle together, unleashing an unstoppable cascade of revelations. His testimony acted like a wrench, triggering a domino effect. Former employees broke their silence, and anonymous tips poured in from past show and shop workers. Disturbing details surfaced. A basement storage room sealed for years and cash transactions far surpassing the true value of traded items. Tucked in a secret compartment of Rick's desk was a ledger. Not just any record, but a chilling roadmap. Its pages listed names, sometimes mere initials, paired with dates and locations. FBI agents matched these to known human trafficking routes across the Southwest, turning suspicion into undeniable evidence so ghastly that even seasoned agents recoiled. Yet what truly unnerved everyone wasn't just the crime's brutality, but its seamless concealment. The laughter, nostalgia, and star-studded charm had masked a sinister truth. The public, blindsided, was left reeling, igniting a nationwide debate not only about Rick Harrison, but about society's blind worship of fame without scrutiny. Behind every televised handshake and autograph signed outside the shop stood a man accused of orchestrating a complex human trafficking network. Just steps away in nearly every episode, Corey grinned as the lovable, clumsy sidekick, all while entangled in a criminal scheme beyond imagination. The awful truth tore him apart. But why confess now? Sources near the investigation reveal Corey had been cooperating for months, consumed by guilt. He drank heavily, shunned public events, shed weight, and grew distant. Those close to him saw the shift. It all came to a head when he was offered immunity for detailed testimony to dismantle the network, a deal he took, triggering the entire operation's downfall. This video's opening lays the groundwork for a gripping exploration of tangled family bonds, organized crime, and media deception. Yet, it's also a tale of courage, however belated. Corey Harrison's confession may not save lives, bring back the lost, or mend broken hearts, but it shatters the silence. For many, that's where real justice takes root. We'll unravel each thread: who was involved, what unfolded, how long did it persist, and above all, what lies ahead for the son who chose truth over his father. On the morning of Rick Harrison's sentencing, a rare gray sky loomed over Las Vegas. Heavy clouds draped the city like a mournful shroud, dimming its usual sparkle and allure. Today, no lively tunes or flashing slot machine lights filled the air, only the murmur of reporters, the sharp clatter of agents' footsteps, and the somber echo of an era's downfall. Outside the Clark County Courthouse, a hushed crowd stood, not seeking autographs, but bearing witness to the grim final act of a man once hailed as a TV icon. This wasn't the ending anyone foresaw for the jovial pawnbroker who spun curiosities into a pop culture phenomenon. Today's oddity wasn't on the shop's shelves. It lay in every testimony and confession aired in court, exposing a shadowy world beyond anyone's imagination. Within the packed courtroom, a heavy silence hung in the air. Reporters clustered together while former employees, distant kin, and a handful of lingering show fans sat in quiet disbelief as if hoping it was all a mistake. At the heart of the room, Rick Harrison, clad in a dark gray suit, clean-shaven, sat motionless. No camera flashes, no familiar grin. He appeared aged. The playful glint in his eyes was gone, replaced by a cold, wary, and unreadable gaze. Mere feet away, Corey Harrison, once Rick's partner, heir, and son, sat in tense silence, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the floor. Since his bombshell confession weeks earlier, father and son hadn't shared a single look. Now they confronted each other, not over a deal's terms, but across an unseen divide of betrayal, quiet resentment, and heavy guilt. Judge Ellen Merrill, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, entered the courtroom. With decades of presiding over cases big and small, she sensed this trial was unique. It wasn't just the defendant's fame, but the bizarre blend of celebrity, trust, and a system exploited in the shadows. Rick Harrison was more than a name. He'd been a household fixture, a source of dinner-table chuckles, a family ritual, a TV star. Now he stood as the accused. Confronted with a grim array of charges: human trafficking, money laundering, exploiting minors, and organized conspiracy, the words struck the courtroom like a thunderbolt, leaving a stunned silence. Then came the pivotal moment. Mr. Richard Kevin Harrison, Judge Mariel declared, her voice deliberate and resolute. You have been found guilty of orchestrating and profiting from a complex human trafficking network, abusing public trust, and preying on the vulnerable under the pretense of entertainment. Judge Mariel's voice held firm. You've shown no remorse or cooperation to deliver justice for the victims. Thus, this court sentences you to life imprisonment without parole. A wave of gasps swept the courtroom. Despite hushed speculations, Rick sat still, his jaw tensing briefly, but his eyes betrayed no tears or rage. Just a slow blink, as if grasping too late the boundary he'd irrevocably crossed. Nearby, Corey hung his head, eyes glued to the floor. That moment marked not just a legal verdict, but the shattering of a carefully crafted mirage. An empire of humor, deals, and family snapshots crumbled into the ruins of exposed secrets. Rick's sentence was more than punishment for a crime. It was a stark reminder that even the most familiar faces can hide shadows. And the truth, however deeply buried, will one day rise to light. A man who once peddled authenticity to America had woven lies for years. This case isn't just about one individual, District Attorney Milton Reyes declared to reporters moments after the verdict. Facing a cluster of microphones, he pressed on. It's about a system that let him evade scrutiny for far too long. Fame blinds us, greed corrupts us, and victims languish in silence. Let this serve as a warning. No degree of celebrity places you beyond the law's reach. The press conference aired swiftly across major networks. In the days that followed, social media erupted with jarring headlines. Rick Harrison sentenced to life. Human trafficking ring uncovered. Rick showed no remorse in court. Las Vegas, once proud to call the Harrisons local legends, spiraled into turmoil. The gold and silver pawn shop was sealed by federal mandate. Its windows boarded with security forces posted round the clock to fend off protesters and vandals. Tourists could only capture photos from afar. Some left flowers in tribute while others brandished signs calling for justice for the victims. At the prison where Rick was transferred that weekend, guards placed him in solitary confinement, both due to the case's severity and for his own protection. His arrival stirred unrest in the facility where inmates, many serving time for lesser crimes, seethed at the magnitude of Rick's alleged offenses. Word spread fast behind bars, and even in prison, some lines were sacred, some sins unforgivable. As the legal system dug deeper, authorities announced they were hunting additional accomplices both within and outside the Harrison circle. The suspected network proved far vaster than first imagined. New arrest warrants were issued, assets frozen, and bank accounts seized. For Corey, once his father's partner in both the shop and their TV show, life now meant living under federal protection. Sources say his immunity deal demanded full cooperation, testifying in all related cases and surrendering all evidence from the operation. To some, he was a brave whistleblower. To others, a turncoat who only spoke when trapped. Regardless, his testimony was gripping and irrefutable. In the courtroom, after the judge's verdict, and as officers moved to escort Rick, an eerie moment unfolded. Rick abruptly turned, meeting Corey's eyes for the first time in weeks. Their stares collided, not with rage or grief, but with something icier, a look that whispered, "You picked him over me." Rick was then cuffed and led down a hallway out of reach of prying cameras. The fleeting exchange between father and son went viral, picked apart on news channels, memed online, and debated endlessly. But for those who tracked the case from the beginning, it was no joke. It marked the close of an era, a long overdue final curtain. The verdict struck like a thunderbolt, its ripples just starting to spread. The courtroom silence wasn't one of respect or calm. It was the oppressive hush of a battlefield after the gunfire stopped, laden with guilt, uncertainty, and chilling truths. In that tense air, Corey Harrison rose slowly, each motion seeming to fight the crushing weight of the truth he was about to voice. All eyes fixed on him. For a fleeting moment, it appeared he'd stay silent. The judge, having just sentenced his father to life, gave a subtle nod. No one anticipated more. Corey had already testified, but what followed was unscripted and unforeseen. No one prompted him to speak. No oath, no legal mandate. Yet Corey began, his voice faltering before finding its footing. "I was the one," he said, voice low and steady, eyes locked on a far-off corner, hollow and distant. "I questioned them. I tracked them. I sorted them. Then I handed them over." A murmur swept the courtroom. The stenographer's keys briefly stilled. Corey stood unflinching. The easy charm he once flashed on TV had vanished, exposing a raw, gaping wound for all to see. He continued explaining how it started with simple phrases like, "Watch that guy," or "Ask that girl a few more questions." Initially, Corey thought it was just about shop security, but then it shifted. He described a second phone. Cryptic messages sent like coded signals. The courtroom stilled. Reporters' pens froze, eyes wide. Even prosecutors seasoned by prior confessions couldn't mask their astonishment at this televised bombshell. Corey inhaled deeply. It was always the same. Be friendly. Get their names, their hometowns, what they're selling. I'd send the photo. If I got the go-ahead, a black SUV would pull up. Men in plain clothes, calling themselves buyers or security would show, but they weren't part of the show. They weren't collectors. A stifled cry of anguish erupted from the back, raw with betrayal. A show once revered for its quirky historical deals was unmasked as a facade for something sinister and unthinkable. "I knew it was wrong," Corey admitted, shaking his head. I knew from the beginning, but I was scared, and I didn't grasp how deep it went until it was too late. The judge, her tone soft yet resolute, pressed. What do you mean by too late? Corey didn't waver. They have everything. My passwords, bank accounts, emails. I didn't just help. I was in it. Part of it. And I don't know how to escape without becoming their next target. The courtroom fell silent, torn between seeing Corey as a culprit or a victim ensnared. He went on. Once a young guy, maybe early 20s, came to sell his dad's camera. He looked starved. I followed the routine, snapped a photo, sent the message, got the green light, but something stopped me. I refused the deal and told him to get out. Corey's voice broke. That night, my dad asked why I let him go. I said, he looked sick. He just stared and said, Corey, I don't feel anything anymore. We're beyond that. A collective gasp swept the room, raw and unrestrained. Even the judge's face shifted, her usual composure giving way to the shock of a brutal reality. It was a moment of stark clarity. No more justifications, no more facades, just the unvarnished truth, cold, agonizing, and final. Rick Harrison had crossed an unforgivable line years ago, and Corey, his son, had chosen to step back. Caught in a web of fear, loyalty, or cunning manipulation, Corey had become an unwitting cog in a dark, sprawling network. There were nights I couldn't sleep, Corey said, voice cracking. Nights I wanted to turn myself in, but I lacked the guts. I drank, tried to forget, to bury it, but it always resurfaced. He met the judge's gaze. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know my role. I'm not a victim, but I have to speak out here now, not in some article or file. The judge nodded. No one objected, and silence gripped the room. The air grew heavy as the truth, more horrific than anyone could fathom, lay exposed. Outside, the story blazed across the globe. As Corey exited the courthouse under federal protection that day, his confession had already gone viral. Times Square's LED screens blared breaking news. Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube surged with trial clips, sparking a frenzy. Some hailed him as a hero, others branded him a betrayer. But the world was riveted. In a flash, Corey Harrison, once teased for overpricing retro game consoles, emerged as a pivotal witness in one of Hollywood's darkest scandals. Most chilling of all, the case was far from closed. From the outside, the gold and silver pawn shop seemed unchanged. Neon signs, vintage posters, and tourists snapping selfies with replicas of Rick, Corey, and the late Richard Harrison. It was a quirky mix of Hollywood glitz and American nostalgia, part museum, part TV set, all tied to a lucrative reality show. But hidden from view, beyond the camera's reach, a sinister reality festered within those familiar walls. FBI records, Corey's sworn testimony, and a federal affidavit revealed the pawn shop wasn't just a family business dabbling in petty crime. It served as a funnel, a recruitment hub, a polished facade for covert operations, a clandestine space to target, groom, and exploit the vulnerable, all to fuel a network of abuse and profit. The brilliance of the scheme was its invisibility. The show's glamour, its relatable charm, and the folksy vibe of the TV series crafted an impeccable cover. No one imagined that customers, chuckling and haggling on camera, could vanish through a back door, never to be seen again. Corey described the operation as a seamless machine. The first stage was spotting the target. Employees, some sharply trained, others working in secret, quietly scanned for tells, anxious eyes, dazed looks, tattered clothes, language struggles, or tourists with no local roots. They could be runaways, homeless folks, or desperate souls pawning their last belongings for pennies. To the outside world, they were just customers chasing quick cash. But to those in the scheme, they were prey. Once spotted, employees subtly flagged the individual. Innocent-sounding phrases like, "There's a rare piece in the back," or "A collector's interested," served as coded signals. These internal cues set the external operation in motion. The handlers, never seen, never filmed, remained shadows, their identities still a puzzle under federal scrutiny. Corey confessed that Rick established the operational rules not with written guides or manuals, but through relentless repetition and intimidation. It felt like signing onto a ship's crew, unaware the voyage was illicit. In a private hearing, Corey revealed how Rick normalized it all, framing it as just part of the job, a legitimate path to profit. The next step was engagement. Employees were trained to foster a warm, welcoming vibe, win the customer's trust, and then propose private appraisals of items. A ruse to lure them into hidden back rooms out of sight from cameras and the public. Beyond the main shop lay a network of restricted rooms off limits to most employees and visitors. Some were just storage or security spaces, but others served darker purposes. Soundproof windowless chambers for prearranged meetings, some with emergency exits that bypassed the shop, opening straight to a back alley where SUVs often idled. Surveillance footage gathered during the investigation exposed chilling patterns. Countless individuals entered but never exited through the front. A particularly damning piece of evidence was an unerased recording showing a young woman alone with a worn canvas bag and camera being led out the back by two men in plain clothes. Her name later surfaced in a hidden ledger tied to a digital signature, a date, and a code connected to a known human trafficking route. Court records revealed the pawn shop's role extended beyond spotting and funneling victims. It doubled as a communications nerve center. Rick possessed multiple phones, some under fake names, others tied to foreign providers. Messages flowed through encrypted apps with transactions logged in a coded notation system. One such cryptic ledger stashed behind a panel near Rick's office was uncovered alongside a burner phone and over $230,000 in cash. All now secured by federal agents. A chilling secret has been laid bare. This isn't just a single crime. It's a vast criminal web steadily coming undone. To stay in the loop on these jaw-dropping developments, be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss a single update. An FBI agent labeled the pawn shop the nerve center of the entire operation. Beneath the floor, a safe held not just cash and jewelry, but hard drives packed with hours of invasive surveillance footage of customers and recordings of Rick's talks with unidentified figures. One chilling clip captured Rick allegedly saying, "We're on a gold mine. Vegas draws them in. We just make them vanish." Those words replayed in the trial's closing arguments sent shivers through victims' families, prosecutors, and jurors alike. Even more unsettling was that some victims had appeared on the show. Faces once dismissed as ordinary customers were now pored over by viewers. Editors from the show's early seasons revealed scenes inexplicably cut, moments featuring customers who were either unapproved or ordered removed by producers. Though the production company officially denied any complicity, it swiftly cut ties with the Harrison family, pulled all content from streaming services, and released a statement expressing shock and dismay at the allegations. The pawn shop's very structure became the focus of an intensive multi-day FBI investigation. Beneath the original foundation, a hidden chamber was discovered packed with evidence bags, documents, burner phones, expired IDs, and personal items likely tied to missing individuals. One agent called it a chilling tomb of forgotten lives. When pressed on how such horrors went unnoticed under the noses of so many, Corey revealed a haunting truth. "We made it normal and built a culture of silence. If you saw something strange and looked away, asked no questions, you'd be reassigned or fired. But compliance that got you trips, cash, rewards, we were conditioned to ignore it." It's staggering to think a heavily watched building could harbor such a complex scheme. Yet, its wholesome facade was the perfect mask. The cameras weren't a hindrance. They were a shield. No one could fathom a reality TV star tied to human trafficking. That sheer implausibility was its cloak, and the public unknowingly bought into the illusion. Fans played a role, flocking to snap photos, shake hands, or snag autographs. They devoured episodes, elevating Rick and Corey to cultural heroes. The shop was glorified. The Harrisons hailed as embodiment of grit and blue-collar charm. Yet behind the glass cases and vintage rifles, a web of deceit thrived. Now, with the shop seized by federal authorities, a pressing question looms. How many sought aid only to meet horror, and how many left oblivious to the danger they'd narrowly escaped? The investigation unearthed more than anyone could stomach. Surveillance logs, confessions, and a pawn shop revealed as a portal to an operation far sinister than anyone had dreamed. But the true horror of its scope emerged only when federal agents uncovered the ledger. Concealed in a false bottom drawer in Rick's desk, it was no oversight. Nestled among routine receipts and papers, its discovery was unforgettable. Not a sleek digital file, but a handwritten record in a weathered leather-bound book reeking of old paper. Its pages a chilling testament to the operation's reach. The pages, filled with meticulously organized handwriting, were adorned with symbols and codes. These weren't mere notes. They represented a complex system, a coded record of human interactions reduced to cryptic symbols, coordinates, and numbers, almost like an inventory. For days, agents worked tirelessly to decipher the entries, uncovering links to known smuggling routes. While some pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place, the vagueness of others only deepened the sense of unease. One particular entry, dated a year earlier, simply read, KJ, November 14, 2022 to 330 pages. This matched the description of a young woman who vanished in Las Vegas in November 2022, last seen across the street from the gold and silver pawn shop. Her disappearance is still unsolved. Federal agents began to extract crucial information from the ledger, which held hundreds of similar entries. Analysts quickly constructed a timeline linking the entries to real-life missing persons cases. Within the first week, they identified over 40 individuals, each with families, lives, and stories now reduced to mere lines in a secret ledger owned by one of America's most recognizable TV stars. Some entries were accompanied by photographs, clear yet untraceable, while others featured disturbing terms like tatalvi or limp. What stood out were the red-inked words missing, raising unsettling questions about their true meaning. Many of the locations listed in the ledger were previously tied to human trafficking operations. A human trafficking investigation was launched targeting a warehouse in Arizona, an abandoned truck in New Mexico, and isolated properties near Los Angeles. Each location was raided and thoroughly searched. The FBI has since deemed the ledger the heart of the case, and it swiftly became the centerpiece of a nationwide investigation that was growing by the day. But what was even more troubling was that the ledger raised new questions about others who might be implicated in these illicit activities. Some entries weren't just initials, but full aliases or names like Vlad, Nico, Dr. R, and Zeb, each linked to sinister criminal operations. Corey confirmed these were off-grid contacts, individuals who had never been seen near the shop. But one entry shocked even the most experienced agents. It listed the full name and date of Jeremy Salinger, a former employee at a youth shelter in Reno, who had disappeared during a misconduct investigation. It appeared he had resurfaced, now involved in a much darker role as one of Rick Harrison's buyers. The ledger was more than just a diary. It was a blueprint to a sprawling criminal network. While it offered crucial leads to investigators, it also reignited hope for the families of the missing. As their pain and anger deepened, the possibility of closure became real. Some families were contacted and shown entries linked to their loved ones. But the investigation went beyond finding the missing. It raised larger questions about who knew of the ledger's existence and who might have benefited from it. Several former shop employees came forward, revealing they had been paid hush money to keep quiet about what they had witnessed. All these stories converged around a worn black notebook, untitled, anonymous, its pages filled with mysteries begging to be uncovered. The victim records were so poignant that they moved the entire jury to their core. With at least 2 members of the press forced to leave the courtroom, unable to bear the emotional weight, the ledger had transformed from mere evidence into a tragic symbol of lives shattered by criminal enterprises. Despite Rick Harrison's repeated denials, claiming the ledger was nothing more than a customer tracking log and that it had been forged, forensic experts quickly disproved his defense. They analyzed handwriting from business documents, personal letters, and even signed memorabilia, and in the end, the evidence was irrefutable. The ledger left no doubt, confirming the truth of every accusation and revealing a chilling secret. Rick Harrison's fall wasn't caused by his persona or the size of his operations, but by the cold, precise detail in each entry of the notebook, with names matching countless real lives. It was undeniable proof hidden under his desk for years, waiting silently for the right moment to be uncovered. And now that moment had come. The notebook spoke not only in the courtroom, but to the entire nation, grabbing the public's attention. Harrison's downfall was no sudden event, but the culmination of years of covert dealings, countless anonymous tips, and one of the most complex surveillance operations ever carried out on American soil. The operation's core mission was to infiltrate a place that had seemed invulnerable. An empire of evidence was carefully pieced together, leading to the eventual dismantling of a human trafficking ring concealed beneath the polished image of the entertainment industry. For years, rumors circulated about missing customers at the Harrison pawn shop and whispers of its connections to criminal activities across Nevada. But those rumors alone couldn't form a case. The Harrison's celebrity status provided them with a protective shield from any real scrutiny. That was until one phone call changed everything, sparking a full-scale investigation that would expose long-buried secrets. The caller's identity remained unknown, but the message was chilling. "You won't believe this, but Pawnstars is just a front. People walk in and never come out. You need to start watching the back doors from the start." The call was initially recorded and dismissed as anonymous tips about high-profile figures were nothing new. However, something about this call stood out. The calm tone of the voice and the mention of familiar trafficking routes. It piqued the curiosity of a junior analyst who flagged the case for further investigation. Just a week later, an internal task force was assembled and the hunt for answers began in earnest. The first task was to confirm whether the disappearances were legitimate. A team was assigned to cross-reference local missing persons reports with timestamps from security cameras at the pawn shop, many of which had been archived in promotional material or leaked behind-the-scenes footage. It didn't take long for them to identify 3 young adults who had gone missing. All last seen within 2 blocks of the shop. Oddly, all 3 were from out of town and had no connections to the area. Their disappearances were suspicious enough to prompt the task force to widen the scope of the investigation. In June 2021, Operation Pawn Trap was officially set in motion. Phase 1 was centered on surveillance. FBI agents infiltrated surrounding businesses, adopting various disguises: tourists, delivery drivers, even cable repair technicians. Over the next 6 months, they observed the pawn shop's daily operations and uncovered disturbing patterns. Black SUVs regularly parked behind the building at odd hours. Customers would enter the shop and never return. Public footage of the shop revealed employees taking strange extended breaks only to return with noticeably changed behaviors. An agent disguised as a tourist entered the shop equipped with a hidden camera. Posing as a man looking to pawn a vintage camera, a known item of sentimental value, he sought to observe how the shop's staff would handle the situation. Corey greeted him, but his behavior was odd. Distracted, barely making eye contact, and frequently glancing toward the back hallway. The agent later reported feeling unnervingly watched by Corey, as if an invisible network was tracking his every movement, adding an unsettling layer to the investigation. Phase 2 of the investigation kicked off in February 2022 when the FBI secured a warrant to install outdoor surveillance equipment on nearby rooftops. High-definition cameras continuously monitored the back exit and loading dock, capturing activity 24/7. After 2 weeks of surveillance, they made their first major breakthrough. A 19-year-old college student from Oregon entered the shop alone, but she was never seen leaving the front. However, footage from the back revealed her being escorted to a dark, cold SUV by 2 unidentified men, individuals she had not arrived with. Given the gravity of this discovery, the operation expanded, transforming Operation Pawn Trap into a multi-agency effort, now involving the Department of Homeland Security and Interpol. By this point, investigators understood they were not facing just a rogue businessman, but a far more extensive criminal network. They ramped up their efforts using digital forensic tools to gather more evidence, including subpoenas for Rick Harrison's phone records, bank statements, and digital communications. Some platforms pushed back, citing privacy concerns and celebrity privilege. But when the FBI presented solid justification for the data requests, resistance began to fade. It was revealed that Rick had been using burner phones for years, relying on encrypted messaging apps and overseas cloud servers, clearly demonstrating his ability to operate covertly. But even the most careful criminals make mistakes. By late 2022, the FBI uncovered a series of encrypted voice memos backed up on a hidden drive within Rick's cloud account. One shocking message was clear. The girl from yesterday, perfect, clean, no baggage. Make sure she's sorted by Monday. We have a buyer in Santa Fe. Another memo simply noted the girl's initials with a promise to update the ledger later. These recordings, coupled with the surveillance data and the ledger eventually found in Rick's office, turned what was once suspicion into undeniable certainty. The FBI was now ready to act, but they didn't do it alone. In January 2023, Phase 3 of the operation was set into motion. FBI agents raided 4 properties tied to Rick Harrison: his home, the pawn shop, a warehouse in North Las Vegas, and a shell company office in Delaware. At each location, they discovered critical evidence: wiped phones, financial ledgers, unregistered weapons, and most shockingly, personal belongings belonging to at least 12 missing persons. The pawn shop became the focal point of the investigation. In Rick's office, agents unearthed the infamous ledger. And in the cramped basement, they found disturbing items: clothing, torn passports, and traces of blood. DNA testing later confirmed that these items belonged to missing individuals. Though the raid wasn't immediately made public, news began to leak. Initially, Las Vegas outlets only reported that a federal raid had taken place at the pawn shop, with online fans speculating it might be connected to tax evasion or illegal antique trafficking. No one suspected the truth was much darker. When the FBI held its first press conference, they kept most details under wraps, only revealing that the ongoing investigation involved human trafficking and organized crime allegations specifically tied to the gold and silver pawn shop. The FBI spokesperson stated, "We have collected evidence and will release more information as it becomes available." Within hours, the world exploded. Major news networks picked up the Las Vegas scandal and paparazzi camped outside Rick Harrison's home. Fans were outraged and the History Channel swiftly pulled upcoming episodes of Pawn Stars indefinitely. Streaming platforms halted reruns and merchandise from the iconic shop was pulled from shelves. A cultural icon celebrated for years was suddenly at the center of a massive scandal. Phase 4 of Operation Pawn Trap culminated in the prosecution of Rick Harrison. He was arrested at his home without resistance, while Corey Harrison, who had begun cooperating with investigators, was placed under federal protection. More of Rick's team were apprehended, including a shop logistics coordinator, 2 unidentified delivery drivers, and a woman suspected of recruiting victims within the shop. A 200-page indictment was filed detailing events, witness testimonies, forensic evidence, and digital communications that together painted a clear picture of systematic crime and exploitation. After 2 weeks, the jury reached a groundbreaking decision. Rick Harrison would face trial on multiple serious charges, including human trafficking, conspiracy to commit money laundering, obstruction of justice, and breach of trust. The trial quickly became a media sensation, drawing massive public attention. What truly mattered, however, was the investigative work unfolding behind the scenes. Operation Pawn Trap became a pivotal lesson in how law enforcement can infiltrate and dismantle organizations once revered by the public, proving that fame offers no protection from the law. It showed that with enough patience and persistence, even the most well-kept secrets will eventually be uncovered. Agents working the case still refer to the pawn shop as the Quiet House, a place that seemed lively and bustling on the surface, but concealed dark, silent secrets. Now, every file, every piece of surveillance footage from the shop carried a name, a face, and a life irreparably changed. As victims were identified, the true stories of what occurred inside the infamous pawn shop slowly began to surface. These weren't just statistics. These weren't just anonymous entities lost in a system. These were the lives of real people pulled into a nightmare with no one there to intervene in time. The heartbreaking stories of victims and their families stand as the starkest reminder of the brutal reality of a system they never even knew existed until it was too late. Then there was David Monroe, a young homeless man recently released from foster care. He had been living in shelters in Las Vegas, saving up for a bus ticket back to Missouri. Friends remembered him as a gentle, soft-spoken individual with a deep love for music, particularly his emotive guitar playing. In May 2022, David walked into the pawn shop with a vintage guitar, a gift from the last foster family that had cared for him, the only possession he had left from a difficult childhood. Witnesses who came forward later stated that a shop employee had told David that his guitar was special and might attract a potential buyer. He was then led to a back room, and that was the last time anyone saw him through the front door. The final call from his phone was traced to the vicinity of the shop, followed by complete silence. His name later appeared in the ledger marked with a check and a simple note, one of the recurring symbols investigators now believe signifies the completion of a process. David's vintage guitar was found months later at an online auction linked to a shell company registered under one of Rick Harrison's aliases. David's body was never recovered. And then there was Lena, one of the few survivors. Unlike many others, Lena is still here to tell her story, though with scars that may never heal. She was 19 at the time, a college dropout trying to make ends meet. Lena walked into the pawn shop to get some cash by pawning her grandfather's heirloom watch. An employee offered to double its value if she agreed to meet a private collector in the back of the shop. Lured by the money and desperate for it, she agreed. When Lena reported the incident to the police, her claims were quickly dismissed. There were no visible injuries, no footage to back her up, and her story of being targeted at one of Las Vegas's most famous spots was dismissed as improbable. She was labeled a troublemaker, possibly intoxicated, and told to stay away from the area. Her report was quietly shelved and forgotten. But years later, during a federal investigation, agents uncovered Lena's name in an encrypted message from Rick. One line read, "The girl from earlier slipped away. Find out who she talked to." When agents tracked her down in 2024, Lena broke down in tears, finally able to speak the truth. "I had been silenced for so long. I thought no one would believe me. I thought I imagined it all, that it was my fault. Now I know I was just lucky." Lena's testimony became a cornerstone of the entire case. From her description of the room and the two men to the smallest details like the placement of the furniture and the locked door, everything she said matched the shop's interior blueprints and data from Rick's digital key system. But not everyone had the chance to speak like Lena. Not everyone survived to tell their story. One of the most heartbreaking cases was that of Jaden Myers, a 17-year-old runaway from Utah struggling with his identity and seeking answers in Las Vegas as part of a journey of self-discovery. Days before he vanished, Jaden posted a short video on social media. Standing in front of the pawn shop, he smiled and whispered, "Finally made it. Going to try selling some old tech and see what happens." That was the last time anyone saw him. His phone was later found discarded in a dumpster behind a casino. The final video, blurry and shaky, showed a windowless room with a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. In a faint whisper, Jaden said, "They're not who they say they are." The timestamp on the video matched the exact moment Jaden had entered the pawn shop. Jaden's family still holds candlelight vigils to this day. His phone was later found discarded in a dumpster behind a casino. The final video, blurry and shaky, showed a windowless room with a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. In a faint whisper, Jaden said, "They're not who they say they are." The timestamp on the video matched the exact moment Jaden had entered the pawn shop. Jaden's family still holds candlelight vigils to this day. His mother, choking back tears during a press conference, said, "He just wanted to be seen, to be understood. He didn't deserve this. No one deserves this." The victims came from all walks of life, different ethnicities, ages, and economic backgrounds. Some were tourists, others locals. Some had entrepreneurial dreams, hoping to sell a valuable item to invest. Others were simply trying to pay rent by pawning family heirlooms. But what united them all was the moment they stepped into a building that seemed like an opportunity only to disappear into silence. Each name released brought with it a wave of pain and anger. Some families who had endured years of agony finally received answers, though those answers came with the deepest sorrow. Others continue to wait, holding on to hope that their loved ones are still alive, that somehow they managed to escape. Non-profit organizations dedicated to aiding trafficking victims stepped in, offering support to the families. Hotlines were overwhelmed with calls and survivors began sharing their stories in support groups. Some even recorded video statements to be played during Rick Harrison's sentencing. "I trusted him because he seemed like someone you could trust," a young woman sobbed in one such video. "He reminded me of someone's dad. I didn't know he'd betray me." These stories aren't easy to hear, nor are they meant to entertain, but they must be told. Behind the fame of the TV show and its familiar faces was a well-oiled yet brutal machine. And those caught in it weren't just names in a ledger. They were real people. They deserve to be remembered. Pawnstars wasn't just a popular TV show. It became a cultural phenomenon. At its peak, each episode attracted millions of viewers, cementing the show as one of the most recognizable reality TV icons in the world. Rick Harrison, along with his son Corey, his late father Richard Harrison, and Chumlee transformed an ordinary Las Vegas pawn shop into a legendary destination. With sharp humor, spirited discussions, and surprising transactions, they drew in viewers across the nation. The shop became a destination almost like a revered landmark. For more than 10 years, they presented America with a vision of strength and familial unity. But now, following Rick's indictment, that perception has been shattered. The show is now viewed as a well-orchestrated facade hiding serious criminal operations beneath the surface. To grasp the full extent of this betrayal, we must revisit the true essence of what the show once symbolized. Pawnstars was never just about trading antiques. It was about trust. Viewers believed they were witnessing real moments, interactions that, despite being scripted, created a sense of authenticity, and that sense of reality took hold. Rick Harrison portrayed himself as a genuine entrepreneur, a straightforward communicator, someone many viewers came to trust, even admire. This made the accusations against him even more difficult to believe and deeply shocking. In the show's early seasons, it focused on everyday life. A man brought in a Civil War-era gun. A woman offered her father's baseball card. The Harrisons would discuss, consult experts, and strike deals. But as time passed, subtle shifts occurred. Some episodes started to feel more contrived, with Corey taking a larger, more noticeable role. Rick became increasingly cautious when the cameras were rolling. The shop's atmosphere started to change as well. There were fewer genuine customers and more scenes were pre-recorded. After Rick's indictment, former employees, speaking anonymously, claimed that from season 8 onward, most conversations were scripted and in some instances entirely staged. While this isn't unusual in reality TV, what set this apart was how the editing process concealed off-camera activities. A former assistant director disclosed that Rick had ordered the deletion of numerous raw footage cuts. He would review the footage after filming, marking which scenes should be erased, citing poor quality or irrelevance, something they initially thought was just a matter of perfectionism. Another editor revealed that he was told to blur the faces of certain individuals, not for legal reasons, but because they were later identified as victims in the investigation. This sparked concerns about whether evidence had been erased or if some victims had unknowingly appeared in the background. Were the edits made to protect someone or to hide the truth? While no formal charges have been filed against the producers or the network so far, some internal investigations have taken place. The producer's spokesperson denied any wrongdoing, insisting that Rick was in charge of day-to-day operations and that the show only filmed approved segments. Still, questions remain unanswered. Some episodes have been removed from reruns. Video forensic experts are now scrutinizing the footage for signs of tampering, such as missing frames, camera angles deliberately avoiding sensitive areas, and cuts that suggest meticulous editing. One particularly telling scene from season 11 featured a young woman talking to Rick about an heirloom. After a cut, her calm expression quickly shifted to visible anxiety. She was later identified as one of the individuals named in the case files. The way the show was filmed may have also played a role in the cover-up. Unlike documentary-style productions, reality TV often films in bursts, cutting out sensitive moments or re-editing scenes for dramatic effect. As a result, not every detail is captured, and what isn't shown often goes unchallenged. Chumlee, one of the show's most recognizable personalities, has largely disappeared from the public eye, deepening the mystery. Since Rick's arrest, he has refrained from speaking to the media, offering only a brief, vague statement through his representative. "I'm shocked and saddened by what I've heard. I knew nothing about anything like this." Corey, who testified in court as a witness, has been placed in protective custody and has not made any public appearances since. The absence of these familiar faces has only amplified the public's sense of confusion and disillusionment. The once familiar show has now become a trail of cold, hard evidence. The question is no longer whether Rick is guilty, but how it all unfolded right under the camera lenses. One theory suggests the show itself was the perfect cover, masking what was really happening. With a solid reputation, Rick was trusted by the public, seemingly too famous to be involved in anything sinister. The cameras created a sense of transparency, but in reality, much could have been staged. Many visitors to the shop over the years confirmed the sense of safety they felt. Cameras everywhere, TV personalities so familiar. "You never thought anything was wrong," one woman recalled. That was the trust Rick relied on. Pawnstars fame allowed Rick to operate in two parallel worlds, one as an upright entrepreneur and another reality the public never saw. The line between reality and script was so blurred that no one could tell where the show ended and the crimes began. And now, after the scandal, the show's legacy is under serious question. The once joyful portrait of Las Vegas life has become a textbook example of how media can be used to deceive and obscure the truth. Photo books, memorabilia, and autograph signings once cherished are now evidence of a brand built on betrayed trust. Platforms like Hulu and Peacock removed the show from their catalogs, while the History Channel was forced to apologize and sever ties with Rick. A wave of refunds flooded merchandise websites, and collectors who once proudly displayed signed items quietly tucked them away. Worst of all, fan forums, once buzzing with love, are now rife with suspicion and regret. People are rewatching episodes with new eyes, wondering why they missed the red flags. One Redditor even posted a detailed analysis of episode 113, noting how every moment now looks different. And sometimes the faces we trust the most hold the most shocking truths. Thank you for watching this video. If you were captivated by the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any secrets yet to be revealed. Be sure to leave a comment with 1 if you empathize with Rick Harrison or Z0 if you have a different opinion. Share your thoughts because even more shocking revelations are waiting for you. See you in the next video.